The state of the world recently has just been, yeah. So if it feels like your ADHD has been working overtime, you are definitely not alone. And it absolutely makes sense. It is certainly not all in your head, and there is a very real reason why the state of everything going on is impacting your ADHD and might make it feel like your symptoms have been worse. We're gonna talk all about it. We're gonna dive into why the heck this is happening. And I don't just like to say problems. I'm gonna leave you with some strategies and stuff that you can try to help make it feel a little better, because we can't fix the world individually or overnight, so we just have to cope with it for the time being. Before we dive in, hi, my name is Zoe and this is my emotional support chicken. Her name is Henrietta. I am a ADHD coach, and I also make content about being ADHD and autistic myself. So let's get into things. I think the kind of starting point for this is that the news is capturing our attention. We naturally have this negativity bias that draws us to the dark things, the negative things. The news, especially today, is designed specifically to capture our attention, to keep us scrolling, to make us click. And so when you take that and pair it with the ADHD tendencies, it is kind of a match made in, I was gonna say heaven, but it's really more like hell, at least for us. Our brains really struggle with filtering stimuli, so we are just getting everything and it's all coming at us, and it's also all equally important, and the way that these things are written are making us feel like everything is super important and equally important. And I'm not saying that these things aren't important, but they all feel equal to us, and it's kind of all just floating around in our brain all the time. Also, our brains are stimulation seeking. People are always talking about looking for that dopamine hit and staying engaged and staying interested, but there's nothing that says the interest has to be positive, and negative interest is still interest. Even when we are engaging with these very negative, very scary topics, it is still interesting and engaging for our brain. So our brain likes it even when we don't like it. The biggest place that you are most likely seeing the symptoms get worse is in your executive dysfunction, which is a huge part of ADHD. This impacts things like your ability to initiate tasks and your working memory, which is kind of holding on to pieces of information that you are gonna use relatively soon. Also things like emotional regulation, regulating where your attention goes, just so many things. And so with this constant barrage of bad news and like sense of impending doom for a lot of people, just kind of the sense that like the next bad thing is coming, and just in this 24/7 constant doom scroll news cycle, we are really in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so when you are in that mode, your brain is prioritizing like basic survival stuff and not those higher executive level skills. Those are the first to go. The things that you are struggling with the most are the things that your brain is going to start pruning away first, when it's like, we just need to focus on surviving right now. So that's why it's probably feeling harder than usual to get yourself to sit down and do those tasks, or remember things, or control your attention and ignore picking up your phone and things like that. We also might be deprioritizing ourselves when we are constantly being shown these horrible things that are happening to other people and other places in the world, and constantly thinking about others outside of ourselves. We start to think that we are not important, our problems aren't important. Like, people are going through way worse stuff than me, or there's way bigger problems than my problems, or you're really just not thinking about yourself. It might even feel selfish to you to think about yourself and your problems, or it might just feel pointless to think about your stuff or deal with your stuff right now. And I definitely get why people are feeling that way. But What I'm about to say might come off kind of harsh, but I definitely don't mean that way. And I do genuinely think all of the things, and I'm not naming specific things because I don't want this to just be like a timepiece video. And I know that the things are going to change, but this piece of it will always be relevant. But anyways, keeping yourself constantly doom scrolling and constantly thinking about things outside of yourself can be a form of procrastivity, which is a procrastination activity. And this is an activity that feels very important. And I'm definitely not saying it is very important to be informed. However, procrastivity is when you are constantly doom scrolling, you are constantly thinking outside of yourself, and it is getting in the way of you doing the things that you actually need to do. That's where it gets into that territory. Watching all these videos and reading all of these articles can make us feel productive, but it's actually not moving us forward in our life, which is definitely fueled by the feeling like it's not important, or like, why does it matter? And all that stuff. I feel like there is so much pressure to stay informed about every single thing these days. And while I definitely want to emphasize that it is important, we also have to recognize that we cannot, as an individual, carry the weight of all the world's problems. And also reminding ourselves that we can't pour from an empty cup. So self-care and regulating your nervous system, it's gonna allow you to have more resources to be able to stay informed and take some action as well. Let's get into some of the strategies or things that you can do or think about, all that kind of stuff. The first thing is to be intentional with your consumption. And I know that this is just a struggle for people with ADHD in general and kind of just the mindless scrolling thing. So one thing is to curate your algorithm as much as possible. Maybe unfollow or mute pages that are posting a lot about the news, or click like not interested on stuff that you don't want to be shown. And that doesn't mean you're never going to look for it. It's just more that it's something that you don't want to come to you. You want to seek it out when you're ready. So you can kind of slot in to your calendar or whatever you use like a 15-minute window to go and get up to date for the day, and that's just it. And not have it being fed to you constantly every time you want to go on social media or pick up your phone. Like if you're getting emails with news, maybe get rid of that. Or if it's kind of like a recap email, maybe just have that. In terms of strategies to limit scrolling in general, I always suggest to prioritize other things outside of your phone. So often this is prioritizing more analog hobbies and make them accessible, make them really easy to get into. So for me, I'll have a puzzle out and it's just out on the table all of the time. You can also try doing a dopamine menu so it's easy to know and have ideas of stuff you can do. I made a kit to make it easy to make your own. I'll put the link to that in the description. Next is self-regulation, and it's really important to be intentional about this because it is probably feeling harder to do because of the increased executive dysfunction, like I mentioned earlier in the video. So really just identifying what helps you get regulated and making a note of it somewhere that is visible, because you might forget what it is. So put it like on a sticky, on your computer, on your bathroom mirror, things like that. And just making that part of your routine. Could be something like mindfulness practice or yoga, or more active like movement or running to get that energy out. For me, it's usually sitting down with a craft. Clearly, I love knitting, so that is very regulating for me, but it is very different for each person. Then, as I briefly mentioned, having boundaries around all of this is super important. So curating your algorithm is a boundary in a way, but there's more that you can do. So you can think about, are there people in your life who just want to talk about this stuff all the time? Do you need to tell them we can only talk about this at this specific time, or don't send me stuff, like things like that. So identifying which boundaries would be helpful for you to add for yourself. What are the steps that you need to do to implement that? And always just start with like a small first step. Don't write this whole big list for yourself because you're just gonna get overwhelmed. Baby steps. And the last thing is about taking action. As I say, action is the antidote to anxiety. And so finding some way that you can take action, it would be definitely hard to take action for every single issue. So identifying 1 or 2 issues that feel especially important to you and finding a way that you can take action to help in some way. And this doesn't have to be something huge or like dedicating your whole life to the cause, especially for us neurodivergent folks. It can be hard to participate in normative ways. So it might be making graphics that you post online. It might be doing something remotely like calling or emailing, or even just donating money if you can, donating items if that would be useful, donating time and volunteering, or reaching out and seeing what would be helpful. Protests are a popular one, but I know that they can be really difficult and overstimulating, especially for us autistic people. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get involved in the issues that are most important to you and help out, even if it's tiny. All right, that is all I have for today. It is a wild world out there, and it is not easy for anyone, and it is also not easy if you have ADHD. It is not easy on your ADHD. So as always, just remember to be kind to yourself and give yourself that extra grace now knowing all of this. If you like this video and you would like to see more content about ADHD, autism, neurodiversity, I love sharing a lot of practical tips as well. So make sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.